We're good.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 5:34 PM. Roll call. Let the record show Alderman Weary is present, Alder Johnson present, and Alder Stoyer in substitute for Alder Nicholson. Alder Burnett is excused. Approval of agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item D, regular business number 1, consideration with possible action on request by Jason Proctor to rescind the snow ice removal charge of $73 at 1708 12th Avenue. Staff.
Had a conversation with Mr. Proctor yesterday. He has requested hold on this. He is attempting, he's in an appeal process. The appeal's been denied. He's looking at other options, options other than coming before INS. So we're investigating those on his behalf, so he's asked for this to be held until the next meeting.
Motion to hold until our next meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, consideration with possible action on request by Janet Angus to discuss the city's sidewalk snow removal policy along narrow terrace streets such as West Mason Street near Locust Street. Staff.
Ms. Angus contacted our office late last week and asked us to hold this one as well. She is currently traveling out of town. She couldn't make a meeting tonight.
All right.
Motion to hold until our next meeting.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays, motion carries. Item number 3, consideration with possible action on request by the Department of Public Works to award a contract for miscellaneous architecture and engineering services to Berner Schober Associates, Inc. for 2019-2020.
We have had a series of contracts over the past 30 years with Berner Schober Architect Engineers here in Green Bay for miscellaneous architectural engineering services that city staff cannot provide. One of the benefits of working with a firm like Berner Schober is they have both architecture and engineering under one roof, so we can one-stop shop a lot of our more unique projects, especially those that we do for other departments such as fire stations, park buildings, things of that nature, where, matter of fact, they worked on some electrical projects with us over the past several years. And these are typically small dollar contracts, but there may be multiples of them during the course of a year. So they may do 3 design contracts, each of which are $10,000 to $15,000. They may get 1 large contract. It all depends on the year. But again, it's been a mutually beneficial relationship, Berner Schober being a city-owned business and an incumbent who's been with us for many, many years. They provide us with a very high quality of service, and if you take a look at the rates sheet that's on page 2 of their document, of the attachment that we provided here, it's a very, very competitive rates for the type of individuals that we're seeing. They do compare extremely favorably at or below what we consider to be market rate for these types of individuals. And they're right down the street from us, about 2 blocks away. So anytime that we need to meet with them on various projects, having the convenience factor is almost like having somebody within our own department. Historically, what we have approached the committee and the council with is to enter into 2-year agreements, and that gives us a chance every 2 years to just continue to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck with this selection of services. Staff does feel comfortable and confident that that is happening. Again, we have compared the rates, and they do size up pretty favorably with market, so staff would recommend entering into a 2-year agreement for miscellaneous architecture and engineering services for 2019 and 2020.
Steve, is this essentially just approving the rates on an as-needed basis?
That is correct.
Okay. I'll start.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, over time, is there a record of as far as what monies that have been paid to Berners and Schober in the past, as far as services provided?
I think it would be pretty easy to query the financial database to come up with those numbers.
Do we have a ballpark? I mean,
Offhand,
Offhand,
no,
no.
I don't.
It would just be nice to know information-wise, because like anything else, it's extra monies per se. I don't know if that's worked into the budget accordingly, or is this is above and beyond? For, let's say, a project that you're working on where you need help, where you go outside. I just want to get some
More
clarification.
often than not, most outside consulting services, and we do this for street projects that we have to go with the consultants with, for sewer projects, and for these miscellaneous projects.
Okay.
That's typically built into the project cost, so that comes out of the bonded money. That becomes
All right.
part of the overall cost of the project.
I don't know if I'm on a line asking that. I just, like to know a little bit that way. And I realize you have a lot of different contractors, so I mean,
Yeah, I think if you
so
want
I don't know.
to, I think if you
I'm
want to
not-
dig into those details, Mark, I think you can certainly do that. That's like a broader discussion of
Right, and
contracted services,
Right.
but
I'm not, it was more or less for my clarification.
Yeah.
So we can just be aware that I've asked.
okay.
All right. that's
Any
all.
other discussion? Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Did you get that, Jim? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, consideration with possible action on review and approval of the 2018 Annual Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Stormwater Report.
This is one of our annual obligations under our MS4 permit with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. We are obligated to prepare a report which summarizes all of the activities we did to demonstrate compliance with the MS4 permit for the year. So this is the report for the year. If you are desirous of reviewing that, by all means, let me know. We do have another copy upstairs. Be more than happy to put that on loan to you.
I think it looks like a good job for staff to handle.
So I've handed out kind of a high-level synopsis.
Actually, we did. Those are just you and I have those.
Oh, that was not part of the,
Right. Yeah.
okay, sorry. For 2018, there were more than 330 utility and construction projects occurring within the corporate city limits during the 2018 calendar year. 296 of those required erosion control permits. You may remember that a couple of years ago, we were served with a notice of violation by the Department of Natural Resources saying that we were not complying with our own ordinance. So we hired the erosion control folks and have stepped that up, so we were able to complete erosion control inspections and compliance checks on all 296 of those site locations. DNR has released us from the notice of violation. Because of the sheer volume of information or those types of inspections that we were having to complete, when we went into the 2017 year, we had hired our first erosion control specialist, found out that the workload was more than one person could handle. So for 2018, the storm sewer utility did have the funding in place to hire a second erosion control specialist. One of the things that we are required to look for is any point at which the storm sewer discharges to a surface water. We refer to that as an outfall. There are 347 outfalls as part of our storm sewer system. The stormwater technician completed the 9th year of our ongoing outfall field screening and inspections at all of our major and minor outfalls. Out of the 54 physical samples, we have to take water quality samples at those outfalls during certain events. 54 outfalls were sampled. We had one minor detection during our 4th rotation of the 2nd field screening cycle. This was a defect of detergents that was found in the stormwater system. That was on outfall 280367 near Englewood Road. The outfall had been buried, so the point of inspection was taken at the first manhole upstream of the discharge location. A point source for that detection of detergent was located, and it actually turned out to be a resident who was washing their car in the driveway. Staff had a conversation with the resident, explained that by washing the car, that the soap winds up in the curb, which drained into an inlet, which wound up going to the surface waters. Residents seemed to understand what we were talking about and stated he would not do it again. The stormwater technician then also provided him with information regarding the city's website on stormwater management. After completing the sampling of the outfalls, we did put one of the fish stickers, a storm drain marker, placed at the inlet to remind folks that anything discharged to that storm inlet does wind up in surface waterways. Upon completion of our ongoing field screening and inspection program, GIS mapping was updated and the report documenting the field screening was completed for the year. We do complete biannual inspections of all of our stormwater quality ponds to look for significant deficiencies such as plugged outfalls, animal burrows, and any notable decrease in life expectancy that's also coupled with the vegetation on the ponds. Water quality ponds that we do have in service are of such an age that we do not have significant sediment deposition, so we have not had to dredge those ponds yet, but we do complete regular garbage and debris cleanup on an as-needed basis and take care of vegetation management as needed. On April 19th of last year, the stormwater technician partnered with the MacArthur Neighborhood Association and Sanimax with their spring cleanup of Beaver Dam Creek. We've been doing that for several years. One of the things that seems to get a chuckle out of committee members periodically is when we discuss the contract with our trapper. We have been contracting with a trapper to reduce muskrat population at our 21 wet stormwater facilities. Again, for those of you who don't know, burrowing animals digging a hole in your pond cause your pond to leak, and it's not so much a pond as a sieve, which goes kind of against what we're trying to do. During the 2018-2019 winter season, total of 121 muskrats removed from our pond. So believe it or not, that is a huge number and could have a very significant adverse impact on our pond. So it's definitely money well spent.
Steve,
Yes.
do you know offhand how much that contract with the trapper is? Ballpark?
Between 15 and 20,000 in that neighborhood.
A year?
Yes.
And the reason I'm asking is I'm thinking about rats.
Oh,
and
okay.
Correlations there. Anyway,
Sure. No, it's a great parallel, actually.
yeah, I didn't realize we did this, yeah, so.
When we first started with it, we actually, I think it was at a no charge. The guy was simply doing it for the pelts, and he was trying to make his ends meet based off of that. And guy had his heart in the right place, but a lot of times you get what you pay for. And the service level just wasn't where we needed it to be. We weren't getting enough muskrats because he wasn't making enough money doing it. So when we put the contract back on the street after the first 2 years, I believe, then Mr. Schrader came to us and it was going to cost us money. But as you see with the numbers of animals he's trapping, we're definitely getting our money's worth and our ponds are lasting. In addition to just burrowing holes and causing the ponds to leak, the muskrats also eat the emergent vegetation, which hampers the filtering ability as the water's leaking down into the pond. There's some nutrient uptake and things like that the plants also do. So having the animals not burrow and not eat the plants makes the ponds last longer and actually function the way they're intended. So,
Are they paid, is this a contract?
yes.
It's not by per animal, it's a contract? In terms of?
No,
what
I
is-
believe it is paid on a per animal basis, but
No, is
there's
it?
an estimated value to the contract.
Well, anyway, it's,
We completed another successful year of street sweeping and fall loose leaf collection. Approximately 2,600 tons was collected with 17 street sweeping rotations. Then we did 9 leaf collection rotations and 4 spring, total of nine collections were completed, 4 for the spring yard waste and 5 for fall loose leaf. Operations Division completed the Greenway outfall maintenance inspections for the community rating system. That helps with flood insurance rate assistance. So anytime that we have these large greenways that tend to run along ephemeral streams, and they actually go through neighborhoods and such. We go and do inspections on that to determine is there dead wood in there that could block the greenway or things of that nature. And then again, we turn that information, and it helps with flood rate insurance for residents in the city. One of the other items that we started several years ago, we generally get 2 individuals from street section that accept a temporary transfer in duties for the summer, and they get them on a back truck, and we go around and vacuum out our stormwater inlets to help make those more efficient so we don't get debris accumulation in the inlet, which would cause it to clog. Throughout the course of 2018, we cleaned 10,871 inlets, which out of 14,000 around the city is a pretty good number. Estimated quantity of 22 tons of material removed while doing that. We did complete the report regarding the extreme rain events of August 28th and September 17th. And provided the report here to the Improvement Service Committee in January, receiving a directive to develop an implementation plan to aid in minimizing high water impacts. Completed and submitted the citywide stormwater quality report to the DNR. Received concurrence from DNR that our plan will make progress in meeting our TMDL requirements. Staff is working with Brown County on design of a regional stormwater facility to be located near Bay Beach Road and Angie Street. So for those of you who are familiar where the incinerator was on North Quincy Street, it would be directly behind or east of the old incinerator building. That pond is going to have dual function. It's primarily needed for the Green Bay packaging project, but it will also serve as a regional pond, so other contributing acreage around there will drain into it, and it will also pick up the street drainage in that neighborhood and treat that before it goes through the lift station and be discharged. Staff has also been progressing forward with the design of 2 lift stations that will aid in minimizing high water conditions in the areas of South Broadway, Seymour Park, Shawano Avenue, Oneida Street, and West Mason. So that's our Basin 108, 106, 110 lift stations that will be going in on Broadway this summer.
Steve, on that one?
Yeah.
You know, every spring there's a lot of flooding that kind of occurs in that Seymour Park area.
Yep.
Will this help alleviate that?
This will help. The other thing that we have been looking at, I'll be honest with you, Alder, I talk to so many different people, I forget who I've talked to about what, so if I'm rehashing old ground, simply tell me.
I do the same thing.
What?
We have been looking, well, we had talked about it relative to the Main and Mason corridor with the underground detention basins. We're looking at something very similar at Seymour Park. So that would be, rather than the cast-in-place concrete, we're looking at putting the large diameter plastic tubes underground.
Didn't Park shoot that down?
I don't know that it's dead yet. I think
Because I would love for that to come before a committee, before a department shuts it
And
down.
I think they haven't been as enamored with it as we had hoped, but I don't think it's necessarily been a no.
Okay.
I think they've asked us to look, is there something other that you could do rather than digging up our park?
Okay.
So we have investigated some other things, but Seymour Park, that's one of the things that we have looked at, because it's one of the only large open expanses in that whole general area. I mean, and I don't want to take a park and turn a park into a pond. That doesn't further our community's needs. It doesn't fit well with our goals. But we need to have the stormwater management. If that's the only place we could put it, then maybe we need to think outside the box and put it underground.
Well, what we're kind of looking at doing is, if you remember, Seymour Park is actually on both sides of Asphalt Avenue. So what we're looking at doing is, with the east side is where the underground would be, and then the actual pond would be on the west side. So you're not impacting, the park all on the west side. So, and we have had those discussions with parks, and they're on board with that for the most part, so.
I'm sorry, you said that the pond would be on the east side of the park?
No, the wet pond would be on the west side.
But it would be a smaller
West side,
pond.
actually.
We're able to make it a smaller pond because we're able to put the underground on the east side.
Okay. And I would love to, I mean, if we get to that point, I mean, I think it is probably important for us to maybe engage with the neighborhood association as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one of the things that we have found is getting out and talking to these folks. Getting information to them is a lot better than them trying to connect dots and making up their own
Right.
end of story.
Okay, thank you.
Is there some residual effect? I know that's the slough area, and that was,
Yep.
on old maps, that whole area. And it's a low-lying area, so do we still have a lot of residual effects of,
That's exactly what you're seeing.
it's still,
Yes,
Because of the
what happened
slough?
was the slough existed,
Right.
and the slough was filled in to provide developable area, but if you don't change the area, the contributing area around it, everything still continues to drain towards what was the low area, it's just that's not a low area anymore, your basement is. So unless you
And
change
those
the
basements
regional
flood a lot.
topography, you're gonna have the same problem. So things like this.
that'll alleviate it. That's
Well,
back in.
what we're hoping to do is, you can either build a pipe big enough to convey the water, or you build detention so that a smaller pipe can be used multiple times. So you slow the water down, you hold it in a pipe or a tank or a holding cell, or a pond for that matter, that's how ponds work. And you release it at a slower rate, so that the water that falls on a hard surface and immediately goes into the inlets, that's gone and the pipe is evacuated. Now the water coming at a slow rate out of the pond can use that same pipe. So instead of needing a 36-inch diameter pipe, you might be able to get away with a 20. Okay, there's a lot of engineering that goes into it, but I mean, that's the basic premise of it. So by detention does two things. Detention allows that water to be metered back out over a longer period of time, so you don't get this flash flood type event. The other thing that it does is your inflow and where your outlet pipe is. The relationship of the outlet pipe to the bottom of your detention basin. There's some wet pond storage in there. The length of time the water is in the pond and the size of the particle you're trying to settle out, that's how the settlement occurs. It creates that laminar flow, that peaceful, calm pond, and that lets the suspended solids settle out before the water is discharged to surface. That's the TSS we're talking about.
On another point, with flooding and that type of thing, would mini sewers help at all?
No, the only thing a
No.
mini sewer does is provides a point of connection for somebody's sump pump.
Okay. Of course, too, in low-lying areas, some pumps go a lot. So I don't know, I'm just trying to
Right,
correlate it to see
but-
if there's any.
As far as alleviating street flooding or things like that, the mini storm really doesn't do any of that. What the mini storm program, there's not a point of connection. The main might be out in the road, or there might not be a storm main on that particular street. So there's nowhere for the sump pump to physically connect to for discharge. The storm sewer itself, the big main, that's meant to catch the water that's in the street being picked up by the inlets. Now, we happen to allow people to hook their sump pumps to it as well, but that's not really why storm sewer exists. The mini storm, if there's not a point of connection for your sump pump, will come out of an inlet with a 6-inch pipe that's only big enough to pick up your sump pump discharge. So that's one of the things I think is often misunderstood about the mini storm program and what it does.
Right, that's true. I guess the only other point, I mean, last year we had that crazy, or this year actually, was it last year?
Last year.
The floods,
Yes.
the various things, so, and I know Seymour Park is one area, but, I pulled my daughter out of her car on Antoinette Street, and that was pretty bad, and I'm just wondering over time, if there's enough being looked at for either lift stations or other like-minded fixes to alleviate.
Well, that's the report that we delivered to the
Okay.
committee back in January,
All right.
was looking at those
Because I know,
issues.
Brian, a lot of that's in your area, so I was wondering if you were
Antoinette
somewhat
actually is
satisfied.
the street that probably prompted, I mean, my request for the report, so
Right.
it's,
So are you satisfied with so far, or, I mean?
well, I'm satisfied with the information that we have, but now we gotta come up with $100 million for Public Works to fix it.
I can cut my salary in half to start.
The only
Can I
other
get a
thing
motion for
that
that?
the only other thing that I had for you is whether or not you're aware, there is a pretty substantial dike that runs along the south shore of the bay over on the east side. We did complete a initial inspection of the dike last year, and starting this year, we're going to begin a phased implementation program to make necessary corrections of deficiencies that we've noted. We haven't noted anything that would, in our opinion, that is catastrophic in nature or would result in any type of emergency action. A lot of what we found is over the past 20, 25 years, trees are starting to grow, shrubbery, that kind of stuff, which over time could dislodge the stones that comprise the dike. So that's a condition of having the dike, actually, is no woody vegetation on it. Some folks in their backyards, as a means to get better access to the bay, they may have taken part of the dike apart to make a pathway through it. We have to go and tell them, no, you can't do that. This is a flood control structure. We're going to have to rebuild it. But I mean, there's nothing that's earth-shattering or anything that would cause a problem with a catastrophic flood in the city at this point.
So you just warn them right now about that? Is
Well,
that-
yeah, that's what we have
You want
done.
to hit a citation worthy? I mean, nothing like that, possibly?
Possible, but that's always a last resort.
Yeah, I know.
We're bigger on education and compliance than
Okay.
finding somebody.
I know when you can find out there.
I would prefer not to.
Yeah. All right, never mind.
So that's the meat and potatoes of what's in the report. What we would be looking for as a recommendation from the committee would be to accept the report and authorize staff to submit to DNR.
So moved.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I just have one side question on that. With all these stormwater inlets that are cleaned, so to speak, is this a yearly thing?
Yes.
Or every year?
Every year.
And I know that you have citizens that you look to help, but you can't always rely on that
Correct, this is above and beyond.
above and beyond.
Yes.
All right, that's all.
All right, item number 5, consideration with possible action on the review and award of the following contracts. Do we need to take these individually?
Yes, we do.
Item A, pavement repair 2019.
Oh, yep. Actually, we are at 6 o'clock, and statutorily, we will have to suspend the meeting briefly to take up the public hearing.
Entertain a motion to suspend the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are suspended.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly check in the hall to see if anybody is here.
My wife and I were to go to this restaurant tomorrow in Appleton, and they just had a
See
fire.
no one, so we
Burn
can
the
start the
building down.
public hearing.
We're just gonna go there now.
I don't know how familiar with these kind of proceedings you are, but when prompted, I will ask you to ask 3 times if there's anyone here wishing to speak. I don't know why, but you have to do it 3 times.
There's nobody in the hallway though?
What's that?
Is there anybody in the hallway?
There is no one there.
All right.
So, tonight we have a public hearing for asphalt resurfacing, South Buchanan Street, Badger Street to Shawano Avenue, Delwood Drive, Harvest Road to Delwich Road, Farland Avenue, Dan's Avenue to 230 feet east of Turek Street, Fiesta Lane from Laura Street to the cul-de-sac east, James Street from Lincoln Street to Ashland Avenue, Laura Street from Deborah Lane to Lilac Lane, Lilac Lane from Irene Street to Shane Street, Maryland Avenue from Skyline Boulevard to Bretco Drive, Preble Avenue from Turek Street to the east end, Redley Court from 12th Avenue to Cul-de-sac West, Skyline Boulevard from Finger Road to Hillside Lane, St. James Circle from Laverne Drive to the cul-de-sac south, Turek Street from Preble Avenue to Farland Avenue, Wirtz Avenue from 9th Street to St. Paul Street. We'll also have a public hearing for concrete pavement, Erie Road, 805 feet south of Mason Street to the south city limits, sanitary sewer and/or sanitary laterals, Erie Road, 805 feet south of Mason Street to the south city limits, Storm sewer and/or storm sewer laterals, Erie Road, 830 feet, south of East Mason Street to the south city limits, and water main and/or water services on Erie Road, 830 feet south of East Mason Street to south city limits. In accordance with state statute 66.0703, this public hearing is being held to levy assessments for proposed pavement, sewer, and water improvements which are included in the 2019 Capital Improvements Program. All the projects being considered tonight will be included in contracts administered by the City of Green Bay Department of Public Works Engineering Division. All of the proposed assessments are being levied in accordance with the city's assessment ordinance. During construction, the contractor is required to provide access to businesses at all times and residences as much as practical. When a residential driveway is inaccessible, the property owners or tenants can receive permission from the city police department to park on adjoining streets. Problems during construction should be brought to the attention of the Department of Public Works Engineering Division by calling 448-3100. Concrete pavement, Erie Road from 805 feet south of East Mason Street to the south city limits is classified as a local street in a residential or light manufacturing zoned area. The existing asphalt road is a rural road section in poor condition and is in need of reconstruction. Erie Road will be reconstructed with concrete pavement with integral curb over a gravel base and a typical clear width of 40 feet. The estimated cost of pavement construction is $1,491,500. Sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water will be installed prior to the pavement reconstruction. The assessments will be paid for by Tax Increment Financing District Number 12. The estimated cost of sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water are $545,000, $1,021,800, and $430,000 respectively. Asphalt resurfacing. Asphalt resurfacing on the streets being considered tonight will consist of milling the existing asphalt pavement, eliminating depressions with a 1 1/2 inch asphalt leveling course, and then placing a 1 1/2 inch or more asphalt surface course over the entire paved area. The objectives of resurfacing are to provide a smoother roadway surface, eliminate maintenance problems, and to extend the life of the street. Asphalt resurfacing can only be completed on an existing improved street where the base is still in good condition. Once base failure has occurred, the entire street has to be reconstructed. Prior to resurfacing any street, utilities will be reconstructed and/or rehabilitated as needed. In addition, preparation work consisting of milling the existing asphalt pavement, spot base repair, and curb and gutter repair will be completed. The following factors are considered when determining whether or not the curb and gutter should be mud jacked or replaced. The condition of the curb and gutter, the amount of water being retained in the gutter, and the amount of funds available for curb repair work. All prep work for the asphalt resurfacing is provided at no cost to the property owner. The 2019 assessment rate for asphalt resurfacing is $14.40 in other than residentially zoned properties. That's per front foot. The estimated cost to resurface all of the streets included in this year's program is approximately $1,410,000. Personnel from the Department of Public Works Engineering have field inspected the streets included in this hearing and have determined that resurfacing is warranted at this time. You know which streets they are? No, which ones had the? It was on Preble Avenue?
Preble had 3 commercial properties.
Okay. Of the streets that we identified for the resurfacing, only Preble Avenue had three properties which are other than residentially zoned. So those would be the 3 that would be subject to the assessments. So at this time, you could ask if there's anyone who wishes to appear before the committee.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak on any of these items? Going once? Is that you?
No, I'm just going one.
Anybody at all who wishes to speak on these items? Last call, anyone who wishes to speak on these items? We have met our statutory requirement. Let the record reflect that nobody has stepped up to speak.
And you can then declare the hearing closed.
Hearing is therefore closed.
Then what we would be requesting as an action item on this would be to approve the public hearing and order the improvements made and any applicable assessments levied.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Excellent. Now we can go back to item number 5.
Do we need to reopen our meeting?
Just
Unsuspended?
state that we are reconvening back to the
All right,
regular
we
order
are
of business.
reconvening at 6:09 PM. With item number 5, consideration of possible action on review and award of the following contracts. Item A, pavement repair 2019.
Pavement repair 2019, I will be honest with you, I was a little disappointed. This contract is for general types of utility cuts, or primarily, a lot of this work is done on utility cuts or other permitted activities where somebody has a need to cut into city pavement. It also addresses if we happen to notice that there's just a bad concrete slab somewhere, we'll go out and replace that. It's maintenance type activities. This year, we only received one bid for this contract. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. We typically have 3 to 4 contractors bidding on this, and I don't think it has anything to do with time of year. So we're going to be reaching out to our other contractors to find out what happened and why this didn't come in the way we had hoped, at least not the number of contractors that we had hoped. But we did have one bid that came in from Fisher Ullman Construction in the amount of $707,612.50. That's definitely in line with what we had expected, so staff does recommend award of that contract.
Steve, is there a risk to, I guess, holding this up and rebidding it?
The risk is we had a valid contract document and we had a responsible bidder. We would not have, there's nothing we have that would change the nature of the contract or any of the terms and conditions. So I don't think we're gonna get anybody else to bid on it. And we would have to consult with law. I think unless there's an issue with not having funding available or there was a material issue with the bidding process, I think you almost have to move forward with it.
I've just seen sometimes some of these bids have just fluctuated wildly. Sometimes when you do get 3, 4, 5 bids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, the question or issue that I would raise is, let's say we did get 5 bids on this and they were the highest, and again, sometimes that window can be pretty wide. That's a big contract.
What we have seen on this, we're seeing less and less people bidding on it. Now, last year I think we had 2 or 3. The nature of this contract and the nature of the resurfacing contract, this is an as needed, and it's kind of an open-ended, hard to define scope, if you will, because we don't know how many utility cuts or other locations. You're essentially tying a contractor up for the entire construction season. And when we send out a list of pavement repair work orders, we expect those to be done within a 2-week time period. So you're kind of tying up a contractor's crew, and Fisher Ullman and Martell have been 2 of the more dependable contractors that we've had doing this. Now, we had a couple of other contractors dip their feet into this contract over the past several years and not performed very well. So that's why they're not bidding on it as well.
So what are they bidding? What are they bidding on here? If it's, I mean, all we have is a number. So like, what are they actually?
Sure, the actual bid schedule that we send out, for the purposes of comparing bids, we tell them that, you know, we estimate X number of square yards of 8-inch concrete where there's less than 20 square yards in a location, and we have X number of square yards of 8-inch concrete pavement where there's more than 20 square yards at a time. So a small patch versus a large patch. There's curb and gutter repairs. There's
So we do have an estimate of that right now.
absolutely.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood something you said before then.
I may not have explained it very well either. It's a combination of, we don't have the total number that's going to be out there. We do have estimates based on prior years and, you know, that kind of thing. And those estimates are simply used for comparative purposes for the purpose of bidding and making award of the bid. One other thing that I can share with you, although this is the contract price that we have for bidding purposes, if we have, let's say for instance, contractor comes to somebody's house and has to replace their sewer lateral, and in order to do that, they have to dig out into the street. That contractor comes in, pulls an excavation permit with the city, they fill that trench back in and they put a temporary pavement on, and then we use this contractor to go out and complete the permanent pavement repair. We estimate that into the bid for bidding purposes, but that's a direct bill back to the property owner or to the excavation contractor. A lot of times utilities like Wisconsin Public Service, Time Warner Cable, Spectrum, those folks who are doing underground work within the city, that contractor direct bills back, so not all this is coming back to the city either.
Okay.
I was gonna ask, Steve, let's just say that we had no contractor come forward. Have we had that happen before?
To date, I don't think we've ever had no bidders.
Because I was just to say, what's the alternative then? Nothing?
Then what we would have to do is rescope the contract and rebid.
Okay. And isn't that time sensitive though too, like anything else?
Well, we'd like to get a contract, you know, if a recommendation were to come forward tonight to award the contract, then obviously it's got to still go to council next week. So we're now into the third week of March before we have authorization to send the contract documents. Typically takes between 4 and 6 weeks to execute a contract. So now we're first week of May, and that's when we want these guys to start making making pavement repairs, because they're going to go right up until snow flies in November.
So in your estimation, this is the route to go?
Yeah, we have Fisher Ullman has been a good contractor. The prices are what we were expecting. The fact that we got one bid instead of 2 or 3 is a little disappointing. And I'm going to reach out to a couple of the contractors to find out why they didn't bid, but I don't see a problem with the one that we got. If it was astronomical or something was way out of whack compared to what we were expecting to see, I would have a different recommendation for you entirely.
Steve, can you report back to the committee the feedback that you get from that?
Absolutely.
And the reason I'm asking is just by way of comparison, I'm looking at the resurfacing 1-19, and the variance between the bids on these is anywhere from 10 to 20%.
Yep.
10 to 20% on this particular contract is $70,000 to $140,000. So again, they may have been the low bid even if we had 5, but they may not have been. And
Sure.
so, I'm trying to, make some correlations here, thinking when we don't get multiple bids, of course, the risk that we expose with the taxpayer here.
Yep, very much.
And I get your point that it's a responsible bid, but I think it's advantageous for us to have multiple bids.
I don't disagree with you.
All right, what's the committee's pleasure?
Motion approved.
Second?
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Resurfacing 1-19 has 2 parts to it. The part A is pavement repairs, curb and gutter type work that's necessary prior to the actual asphalt resurfacing. Part B is the actual asphalt. So received 2 bids for each part. Martel Construction was the low bid on Part A in the amount of $403,929. Northeast Asphalt was the low bid for the Part B in the amount of $1,048,997. So staff does recommend award of those contracts to those contractors in the amount stated.
I don't have that on my,
It's in front of you.
Is that it? No, it's not. That's another one. I went to my laptop and I don't have, it's not listed.
They're on the bottom of this one. He's looking for the bids, huh?
All right, go ahead. Okay. All right, we
Yeah,
got it.
He's got it.
Never mind. Never mind.
All right.
It's a new day.
Was there a motion on this one? Or discussion, questions?
I move to accept bids.
I'll
All
second.
bids.
A motion and a second, is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item C, sewers 1-19, including water main.
That's resurfacing, right? Sewers 1-19 is in your packet. This is the sewer contract that goes along with the asphalt resurfacing. We're very happy with the response we got here. We had a total of 5 contractors bidding on various parts. Dorner Incorporated and PTS were the only 2 that bid on all 3 parts, but we did have a total of 5 contractors bidding in some form or fashion. Low bidder on Part A was David Tenner Corporation in the amount of $1,157,717.90. David Tenner Corporation was also low bidder on Part B in the amount of $1,463,093.70. And Advanced Construction was the low bidder on Part C in the amount of $823,369.20. And if memory serves me correctly, we were very happy with the bids. These were very, very aggressive bid prices, so staff was extremely happy with these.
Have you worked with these companies before?
All of them, yeah, they're all real good companies.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item D, sewers 2-19.
And Sewers 2-19 is our early season mini storm contract. 3 bidders, we just opened these yesterday, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we just opened these ones yesterday, had 3 bidders bidding on it. Dorner Incorporated from Dorner, Luxembourg, was the low bidder, $281,162.08. As far as this contract was concerned, taking a look at the 3 bidders, we're pretty happy with the spread. That's actually a pretty tight spread. And the 281 was a fairly decent number. This contract has been problematic for us in the past because it's not like doing a sewer on a street. It's 100 feet of pipe here, and you're digging in terrace, and you're digging around trees, and it's a lot of moving around and mobilizations and this, that, and the other. So before the 2018 construction season, I actually invited a handful of the area contractors in, primarily the 5 guys you saw on the previous bid, and said, guys, we're noticing that the mini storm contract, the dollar value, the price per foot on the pipe is really starting to skyrocket. Can you give us some insight as to why that is and what's going on? Had a real good discussion with the folks. We took a look at some of our processes and said, maybe we can back off a little bit on this, or maybe we can modify how the mini storm's installed here. Still get the same quality that we're looking for, but make it a little bit easier on all. There were some scheduling issues that they had identified that we addressed. So those prices have stabilized quite a bit this year, so we were happy to see that as well. And again, having Dorner out there, Dorner's a pretty big firm to be putting mini storm in, so we're happy to have them.
Okay.
What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve Dorner Inc. Oh, bounce the bidder.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, consideration of possible action on application for concrete sidewalk builder's license by Fisher Ullman Construction Incorporated.
Fisher Allman has held the license with us for many years. As a matter of fact, they're a little bit on one of our contracts tonight, so staff does recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 7, consideration possible action on applications for tree and brush trimmer licenses by the following. Item A, A1, can we take these in bulk?
You can.
Item A, A1, tree service. B, Beaver Tree Specialist. C, Southern Tree and Shrub Care LLC.
All three have held license. We're happy with all three, so recommend approval.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Director's report.
Director's report is going to be very brief because I'm actually leaving to get back out on the street and start handling, helping out with some of the high water and icing events. That's the big story right now is with the weather pattern finally breaking now, instead of having just ice on the streets, we've got a lot of slop out there. Staff has been working since the end of February trying to get back out into the residential neighborhoods to get clearing done. One of the things we're finding is that ice accumulation has adhered itself very, very hard to the underlying pavement. So within the past week alone, our front end loaders, the main boom arms on the front that lift the blade or the bucket, I've actually broken the arms off three loaders. 2 of them we were able to get back in the shop and repair. One, the arms were damaged so badly we had to pull off and replace them, so that was a $5,000 investment right there. I also had some significant damage on one of the graders, so it's definitely not for a lack of trying. The guys are out there and they're giving it their all to the point where we're actually breaking equipment right now. Got crews out all over the city. We have street section working in cooperation with the sewer section. The sewer guys are going out and locating the inlets ahead of the street guys. Street guys are trying to dig out what they can, and if it's too difficult on the machinery, we start thinking that something's going to happen. We've actually assigned pick and shovel crews immediately behind it, and the guys are with hand tools are chipping things out. I did get a report from Street Superintendent Tony Feetzer earlier today. After 2 days of warm weather, we do actually have some residential streets where it's starting to break up. So we're taking a look at repurposing a couple of loaders to try to hit some of the neighborhoods starting tomorrow, where we're seeing the slush break up. So the staff is busy. They are out hitting everything that they can, and we will continue to work on this until we're back open for business.
I mean, I think all of us are getting calls from folks.
Absolutely.
Of course, so
Yep.
I just forwarded it over to operations.
Yep,
and
that's probably the
whatever
best
they
thing we can do.
That's all I'm doing.
Stephen, I mean, hats off. I know Tony's been very responsive to some of the stuff I've shot over to him too about, in particular, alleyways in some of our side streets. And it's more of an observation. I'd like a reaction from you. And I know that they're doing everything that they can. It seems to me, at least in my area, like a lot of the side streets and alleyways where they became issues were when we had that snow/rain event, slush event.
February 24th.
You know, see, you know, when I had my snow company, I remembered the dates like clockwork too, because you know which days you had the most headaches.
Well, I drove home from Minneapolis in that event.
Yeah.
So I remember.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You know, I know our policy is 2 inches. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 2 inches
Yep.
or less, and we leave it on the side streets. But in that particular scenario, I wonder if we might have been able to avoid a lot of these. And I think sometimes it's okay to say maybe we didn't make the right call and we should do it differently in the future. But it seems to me that by not removing it, that it froze over and then became impossible to remove. I'd like to get your
We
reaction
actually were out
perspective.
in that event.
On the side streets.
Yep.
How
We
did
didn't-
it get so?
We didn't get to all of them before the temperature
Before
dropped
it
in less than
froze,
5
okay.
hours.
That
Okay.
was
That one, it was warm. Somebody flipped the light switch and we went in the freezer. and
Okay, so that was
we
the
got
issue there.
caught. Yep, there was
Yeah,
just
nothing
nothing
you
more
could
than.
do.
Because like some of these alleyways that I had in my district, there were literally cars were getting stuck,
Yep.
scraping their bottoms, and then, nothing you can do then.
Yeah.
well, like in the future, I mean, basically, how long does it take for all the crews that go out to do a one event? Is there some kind of, like, even for this type of event, You said it, 5 hours, we couldn't do it all. But
Correct.
is there a time frame that you can say, you know what, within 8 hours, 9 hours, we can at least make one pass?
A
get-
light.
Just a light-
A light fluffy event.
Okay, we'll go with that.
A
Start
light
it.
fluffy event is about 12 hours through the
Okay.
city. If it's wet, heavy, or in excess of 6 inches, 16.
Okay.
We start breaking 2 feet of snow, I'm looking at a multi-day event. We're probably looking at 16 on, 4 off, 16 on, 4 off, 10 on, and then send them home for a day.
All
When,
right.
when we plowed the 24-inch event, 27-inch event last April, I think we went 3 shifts, 16 on, 4 off, before we got on top of it. Sent guys home, got them 8 hours rest, and came back in, and for the next 3 days, we were cleaning up, so.
No, I know there's different scenarios, but I'm
Yep.
just trying to get a little bit of a handle on that, because people
Yeah.
call.
If it's a 4-inch snowfall and it's light and fluffy and we don't have high winds blowing it all over the place, 12 hours, we're open for business again.
Okay, okay. That's good to know.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Entertain a motion to receive and place on file.
So,
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, Improvement Services Committee is scheduled for March 27th. I know that I am out of town. I believe Alder Brunette is out of town. So
is that what
do
day
you
is it?
want to maintain that date and we find some
We've got a
replacements?
public hearing scheduled for that day,
Okay.
Mark, can you come for me?
so we need to keep that.
I probably could.
Welcome aboard.
All right, we'll talk.
So just we'll talk.
Okay. All right,
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned.
Leave your meeting.